Well, I don't know. You know, I didn't pay real close attention to ECW much after the time that I left there, but I'll say this because at the time that I knew what Paul was doing with me and forcing me to drop the belt, and you know, I knew that I was week to week at best. That at any given time Paul could just leave me off, which is what he ultimately did at the Poughkeepsie pay-per-view a short time later. You know, telling me that if I knew it was good for me, I'd best get my ass to Poughkeepsie, and I couldn't bring my driver, and you know, that kind of stuff. I mean, you know, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy, and that he knew that was going to force me to say fuck you. And you know, by the time Taz got the belt, all of those things that I'd mentioned earlier in a business sense were in place. You know, the debt was in place. Paul still owed a shitload of people, more than just me, a lot of money. At very best, I thought that by taking the belt off of me and ultimately pushing me out the door may have bought the company a little bit of time, because that's one little chunk of money he doesn't have to worry about paying, because I never harbored the belief that I would get that money. So you know, there's $144,000 wiped off the books. Maybe that bought the company a couple weeks or months. But, you know, to be fair to Taz, by the time he got the belt, the company was hobbled and was heading towards its imminent demise. It was nothing that Taz did or didn't do that brought that on. And from a booking standpoint, I also think that, you know, and going back and looking at the way Paul booked from that point forward, I saw a lot, especially as they were heading into the TNN, after I left and they were heading towards the TNN deal, it looked to me as though Paul had, his creativity had dried up. You know, I used to go back and sit back and marvel, watching Paul sit back and this evil genius create these ideas that were stunningly compelling to watch. And when I was watching ECW after I left, I didn't watch it a lot, but I turned it on here and there and, you know, follow along to the sheets and things. It seemed to me to be a rehash of a lot of the same stuff. If you go back and look at, you know, Simon Diamond, who I thought was an incredibly good interview, promo. He's wearing black and gold robes. He's doing sort of cerebral type promos, very reminiscent to the franchise promos. You had Rob Van Dam going out and doing, you know, incredibly athletic, crazy dives, and you might almost say homicidal, suicidal, genocidal, like Sabu. You had Rhino, you know, the sort of tank as the updated version of Taz. It was sort of this, like looking at that version of ECW at that time heading into TNN, it was like looking at a mirror image of ECW from 5 years before, yet without those guys. And the ECW fans, if they were nothing else, they were incredibly loyal, passionately loyal. So for somebody to go in and suddenly start trying to be the next franchise or the next Taz or the next Sabu, nothing against the guys that were doing it, but I think the fans took umbrage with that. And it just lacked the creative spark that Paul was so well known for. And, you know, and then the financial side we talked about. You know, so you add those two things together, the lack of creativity, the rehashing of ideas and characters, and then the financial stuff that we talked about. And ECW was on its last legs. It was on life support, and it was just a question of when somebody turned off the life support.